Imagine your sock is melting down and it's 3 a.m. and you're staring at a ransom note. And in exactly 72 hours is all you have to tell the government everything that happened.
72 hours, Fern? It takes longer than that for my IR team to pick out the toppings they want on their pizza, much less map out a full-scale exfiltration.
Yeah, that's the challenge right now, Damian. CISA is in full-blown 2026 tour of town halls because the industry is officially in revolt.
That's right. This is episode 35 of the DTF Cyber Podcast. It's the feds versus the firewalls. I'm Damian.
This is Troy.
And it's your boy, Fern. Let's go. My first thought when I read this is, how do people even know? Okay, if you see a car crash, what do you do? If a car starts rolling, right? You go try and help someone. You get out your car. You go try and save a life. The car blows up in flames. You hope you're not near it. You hope you pull everyone out. Everyone's safe, right? I'm not really thinking about calling 911 at the time, right? And that to me is kind of what this feels like, is when something happens, CISA is now saying 72 hours, you have to let everybody know. But it's there's more important things than telling someone what's going on. Someone else can call 911. I got to go save someone out. I got to go save this body out of a burning car. How accurate is that analogy?
Yeah, I think it's pretty accurate, Fern, but I think it's important to note that this is for critical infrastructure to start with 72 hours. I know that's a big field where you're talking about telecoms, energy, gas, power, all the stuff. But at the same time, we have been getting hit from foreign nations and adversaries for years. And maybe some of that's going underreported. So this visibility may give CISA the opportunity to help us fight back even stronger.
So the concern there, Troy, is it really just critical infrastructure today? We know that sometimes these can grow into private industry and other organizations as well. So I guess there's a concern there that you're setting a precedent that you got to do all this paperwork within 72 hours versus attend to the immediate threat.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think this also has a 24-hour clock on ransomware once you know that you have a ransomware. I've worked through several major incidents, we'll call them, through my career. And I can tell you that, when does that clock start ticking for that 72 hours? Is it when you and your legal team declare an incident becomes something significant? Or is it from the time of the first detection? So I think there's a lot of ambiguity there.
Well,
and also, who gets to decide what's a significant incident? Because that may be different to me and to you.
Yeah, just a quick clarification there. It's 24 hours if you pay the ransomware.
Okay. So if you don't pay, no one knows.
Well, we've talked about this on, should you be even paying it, right? We've talked about that. So maybe this is a way to try to limit that.
Well, random question. What percentage of companies that have an incident actually pay? Would you guess?
No idea. No, because it's hard to say if they would even admit it.
But now if they have to, pure speculation. If you were to throw a dart at a dartboard, that's a bad one. If you were just to guess a number, if it was an over-under bet, what is the number that you think is the percentage of companies that would have to report within 24 hours if they had an incident, assuming this were to be in place?
Well, right now, this is critical infrastructure. So, definitely not zero.
Yeah. Okay. That counts as an answer. It's not a very good answer. I wanted a number.
Yeah. And if you think about critical infrastructure, we have a lot of regulations there, NERC and FERC and some of the other, regulations where cybersecurity is forefront. If you think about banking as well, financial services, you have all these regulations. So it makes sense that there's a reporting structure in there that gives you a timeline to report, because you can't just be indefinite or never. It's important that we know about these things, especially when it comes to national defense, because if you think about critical infrastructure, again, these are, national defense systems that if they go down, our population will suffer, perhaps die. And so when life and death happens, I do agree with you, Damian, though, if this translates into the private sector, we definitely need to talk more about those timelines. So Fern, back to your question, if I threw a dart at a dartboard, I'd say 85% or better of critical infrastructure have been reporting this stuff because they are heavily heavily regulated, and they face stiff fines, penalties, and even having to testify before Congress as to what they did or didn't do. So very high number probably on critical infrastructure. Private business, I would say that number is less than 25%, depending on, and we may never know because they don't report. They want to keep that, brand recognition and reputation in good check.
Yeah, but I think most people are up in arms because of the 72-hour, limit, or where you have to report it within that time frame. That's very, very short, right? Like I said in the open, it takes a long time just to figure out what's going on, and so 72 hours could go by really, really quick.
Agreed. And it depends on when you call it. When you call it from, when my legal team, privacy teams, we always used to have this. When do we call it an incident? And because at the beginning, you don't know if it's an incident. You're investigating it. You're looking for hands-on keyboard type of behaviors in your logs, and so there has to be a time that the clock starts ticking, as we call it. And that's really once you brief leadership and you start giving your board and CEOs updates and stuff like that, it's kind of a signal that it's now escalated into an incident, and maybe the clock starts there. 72 hours, if you think about it, when national security is on the line, and we're talking about a gas pipeline, a telecommunications backhaul, or something along those lines, satellite dishes, those things are super critical. And if we just let it go more than 72 hours, I think we have a big problem.
Yeah, but that's almost like along the lines, like Fern's open on, you see an accident. Do you, spend the minutes that you have to call for help? Or in this case, it's not even calling for help. It's just reporting that this happened.
Yeah.
Or do you spend the time to go and potentially save a life? And I think in this situation, that's the dilemma here. It's like, okay, when's that 72 hours start? Does it start as soon as you realize, hey, there's a significant incident? I don't know. We still have to define significant. Or do you report it right away just to be safe? And then if you report it right away, the question is, are you making your situation worse because now you're letting the attackers know that, hey, they were successful and this is how we're dealing with it?
Yeah, well, hopefully the folks you're reporting to, such as FBI or the Internet Crimes Center, is not alerting the hackers that you've let them know. But so if you think about an incident, usually you have multiple teams working. So you have the technical team in the SOC working on the bits and the bytes. You have an executive war room open. So you got a SWAT call going on your tech side. You got an executive war room going where your leadership may have an executive war room going where they're getting updates. They're providing updates to investors, investor relations, and the board. Somebody has to have that role. In our company, it was usually a privacy attorney to look at client contracts. What is your client contract say you have to notify your clients? Like, that's even more important. Usually our client contracts is 72 hours or less as well. So just adding to their checklist of people who they have to notify in that 72 hours, adding into that the FBI, which we always did anyway, as part of our checklist, I think is very reasonable. I think somebody has that onus, and that's part of their job to notify them. We actually had pre-canned and approved communications for incidents, internally facing. What do we tell employees if they can't get on the local internet? What do we tell clients? Externally facing. What do we tell investor relations? What do we tell our investors in Wall Street? So there's multiple paths here, but I think you have something prepared and someone whose responsibility is not technical, not to focus on something other than the incident, but somebody whose job is communications to these parties. Yeah.
So I guess the question is, what does it mean to report? Is it just notify somebody? So I could see the argument that, okay, we're having an issue. We don't know yet if it's a full-blown incident. And I've got 72 hours to maybe have somebody from the FBI to sit in on our incident response call, just as a precaution, right? That covers me as a CISO, but then also lets the government know that we potentially have an issue.
Internet crimes usually cross state lines, so they always fall into the FBI's purview for jurisdiction. And so we had a great relationship with our local FBI team. And when we did have to report something to them, it's usually just, what's happening? What do you know so far? And they don't get involved. They never join your SWAT calls. They never jump into the incident unless you need them to, of course. But they just want to know what you're doing, what you're working on. They can provide feedback like, this threat actor, we know about them. Here's what their tendencies are. This is nation state X, Y, or Z, Fancy Bear, APT 28, et cetera. A lot of great intel from our partners at the FBI. But they never get in the way of the investigation. They never want to join your calls and such. They just want to stay updated on what you're doing, what the impact is, and so on.
Yeah, I'm just more concerned about how much extra work that causes, right? So if it's something that's really easy and it's just, hey, I submit a ticket, done. What do I need to put in there? Because if you take away resources to go and summarize it to hopefully be correct, because we don't know what we don't know. We're trying to really figure this out in that moment. And like any other incident response team or leader, you may go through an incident and you haven't slept for 2 or 3 days because you're trying to figure it out and you're under a lot of pressure. And so trying to write that up at that moment is kind of difficult, right? When you're not really focused on writing a report, you're just trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Well, so here's something that's part of it as well. So in the EU, they have what's called the NIS2. Same notification guidelines, but they're going to add in a early warning within 24 hours. So add on in within the 72-hour window of notification, there's an early warning requirement to notify. So it's even worse in the EU, just for context. But figured I want to throw that in there real quick.
You ever had your car broken into?
I don't think so.
No. So I had my car broken into one time and I called the police to try to report it. I had to wait like 8 hours for them to show up just to do the report.
You know why? I just saw a recipe that said donuts could take 8 hours to cook. Maybe we'll cut that out. Nah, that's actually kind of funny.
So that's, I mean, my point is, right, it's not that we don't want to report it. The point is, what's the urgency to get there? And Troy, I get it, right? You're saying, hey, there's some national security, blah, blah, blah. You got to notify more people. But in that moment, I think there's just a lot going on where I don't want to have to worry about making sure my report is accurate because I don't necessarily know. So I think that's why there's this pushback, right? Now they're doing town halls. So I don't know what the right balance is. I'm not saying it's bad to report it. I'm just worried about the 72-hour time frame.
Yeah. So I think you made an important point. Is it's a strain on your resources, right? So if you were to ask most people in cyber today how they feel about their resource availability, they would say it's pretty tight. There's not much time to, go off and do side projects. If something happens, they need all hands on deck. So now if something happens, go write a report and send it off, right? It's like people should be focused on recovering, right? Getting out of the issue, kind of getting through it versus having to spend time trying to send something off to someone that honestly, okay, let me ask you this. I mean, this is for Troy too. We're just going to assume that power plant had an issue, right? You now notify whoever you need to notify. What does it actually do? Other than just let them draw some sort of, maybe connect the dots if there's multiple things happening at the same time within a 72-hour window, outside of them correlating different infrastructure, I will say groups as being under attack potentially. What does it actually do? For me, now we know everyone's being attacked, but I think we knew that when all the lights shut off, right?
Exactly. I think you're spot on, Fern. That's the major concern is how do we put the dots together? Because right now, let's think about an attack, fancy bears hitting our critical infrastructure. They're using the same attack and the same TTPs in 100 different places, and you have 100 different incident responses running. We don't know that they're all running in synchrony. And so what happens is once you start putting those dots together, you can look at IP addresses, tactics and techniques, and different malware types that they're using, and you solve it once rather than 100 times individually. And so by being able to correlate those things faster or share that intelligence, it's going to be able to eradicate the threat faster and prevent it down the road.
Troy, does CISA have that ability though? I mean, could we just differentiate? The FBI is not CISA and they operate differently. So if I report it to the FBI, does that count as a CISA report? Or do I need to report to the FBI and then also turn around and report it to CISA? So you see where I'm going with this? It's how much paperwork do I need to do? How many people do I need to notify? And then to Fern, what you're saying, what good does that get me in that situation under pressure?
Yeah. Or if you...
Yeah, it's the same reporting mechanism in the IC3, right? So the IC3 is a reporting mechanism, goes to CISA and FBI. They do share intelligence. And actually, there's an NSA and FBI and CIA person sitting within CISA who is doing the corroboration of this data. I've actually met those folks doing it. And they look at it from all agencies, whether it's foreign or domestic, and they correlate that. Now, FBI is responsible for building a case, a criminal case. They're going to take these people to court. They're going to try to extradite them and such like that. However, CISA is that agency that can protect the critical infrastructure, help the people eradicate the threat actor faster, maybe even send resources to be hands on keyboard, let's say if it's at a power plant, to help them if necessary on the OT side, the IT side. So there is a huge partnership, and we call it the public-private partnership with the government. And I know, it sounds like it's very disjointed and siloed, but what we're trying to do here, CISA is trying to break those walls down and actually share intelligence more smartly across the U.S.
Okay, I'm not sure it's that clear though. Have they published that this is the requirement and this is how you submit a notification?
I haven't seen the report necessarily, just saw the headlines where we're talking about reporting requirements, sending people into a frenzy. So I know people are up in arms, but we have some good folks. Sean Planky at CISA is doing a great job trying to get the word out, continuing on Jen Easterly's success there of really bringing the message to the folks. So hopefully they'll put out something. If not, I'll poke them as well and see if they can't make this a lot more clear.
Well, I think that's the point of the town halls, though, right? Have the conversations.
Yeah. Well, or get the word out, right? Let me ask you this though, Troy. I have an incident. I report it, right? What's the one thing everyone always wants to know? What's in it for me? Like, what do I get out of this? Like, not only do I have to report it, like I'm telling on tattling on like a little brother, or little sister. Now I have to take the time to do that, but like notifying these governing bodies, okay, they might be able to help me, right? They might send some resources, but like, what's the benefit to the people? Because like when you think of it, like, obviously public sector is different than private, but if I say private, it extends into private. What do they care about, right? Money, making money, staying open. So,
and not going to jail.
Yeah. So like what's the benefit for a private company to do it or take the time and take resources they may or may not have to even notify someone that may or may not even matter because it's not public infrastructure, right? So I guess I'm going beyond where it's at today, but I think the presumption is if it goes well, they may just extend it. And then what happens there? Like when you set the precedent, what happens as the line moves, right? And when you think of private sector versus public, the main thing that matters is ROI and money. If you don't talk that, like, doesn't matter to most people making those decisions. So like if it goes to private, like what is the benefit? Is there? I don't think there is.
Yeah, good question. And I think that, we're really extending our reach if we say that this is going to extend into private, because as you think about it, the private sector has their own regulations, whether it's SOC or HIPAA or one of those other type of regulations where they have mandatory reporting guidelines. But let's say you're a private company, you're not publicly traded, you have no PCI requirement, you have no healthcare data, so you have no regulations. And I know a lot of business owners in that space, right? I cannot see our federal government or anybody else, poking and prodding into those areas, demanding they report things today. I mean, that would be a huge stretch, a huge leap. I think what we're seeing here is a reaction to a lot of foreign adversaries who have been attacking critical infrastructure and the U.S. trying to get ahead of that and support it. We saw, hydroelectric dams under attack. We saw a water system in Florida that was compromised by a foreign adversary across their, team viewer. So we've seen tremendous amounts of interest from foreign nationals trying to get into our, critical infrastructure. I do not see this ever going into the private sector without significant debate, legislation, and our Congress and Senate having a voice in that as well.
Okay, so it might not, but according to my notes, here is the controversy, right? So CISA's broad definition includes 30,000 entities because they exceed the SBA size threshold, whether or not they're critical. So I think that's a important nuance. A distinction there is like a mid-sized furniture company is now on the hook just like a power plant or nuclear power plant. We'll say that because of their size and how they're outside of the SBA guidelines for sizing, right? So that's part of it as well, and I think that's really the issue at hand is why
it does go beyond just critical infrastructure, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's they list it as a covered entity, right? So covered entities qualify in this case. So if they are beyond the small business administration size,
what's that size?
Let me check. I can find it real quick.
It's very interesting if it's company size puts you in a critical infrastructure domain, because as you know, there are 16 segments of critical infrastructure that the FBI is tracking, from nuclear to telecom, energy, gas, etc. Just because you have 50,000 employees does not mean you're critical infrastructure by definition of, for what I'm familiar with.
Okay, so I did a search on that too. The sectors were water and wastewater, so I get that. Energy, financial services, healthcare, and then I see in here tech and cloud MSPs. CISA wants to report on upstream open source flaws in that. Yeah, I think it's interesting because maybe this does reach beyond just critical infrastructure. I think there's probably we talk about this all the time, third-party risk that would be supporting critical infrastructure anyways.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the notes here. So the sizing, the limitation is actually from 100 to 1,500 employees, right? Or 2 3/4 or 2.75 million to 47 million in annual receipts.
So it has to be above that to be outside the SBA.
Yeah, over 2.75 million, right? So basically between, we'll just call it 3 to 50-ish, right? So those are the numbers. So how many?
Yeah, I'm going to challenge that one, Fern, on reporting requirements. I'd love to get some clarity from CISA on what defines critical infrastructure, but I can't see a 1,500 person company that has 5 million in revenue having to report as critical infrastructure. It just doesn't match my understanding of what this is intended to do. But to go back to what we're trying to do here is, again, to bring knowledge and intelligence to those who are fighting the bad guys on a daily basis. I think we've seen a very big underreporting, especially as it affects things that are important to our daily life.
I agree with the underreporting piece, right? It's terrible not to report it, but I'm not challenging that. I think for the greater good of the community, we'd like to know when these incidents happen so we can break them down, right? Because I always talk about look at past incidents and then reverse engineer that to make sure that your organization doesn't have the same problem or fall victim to the same methods of attack.
Or just awareness, right? Like you see a bunch of cop cars, don't go. If you look on the news and there's someone robbing a bank, right? Don't decide it's time to go withdraw money or deposit money at that same branch, right? Like I think awareness is important because, perfect example. When was this? This was just before Christmas. I was with my daughter and we were at Target down the road here, literally just like down the road. And I heard gunshots, right? Like, and I'm just walking there. I'm walking, and we're by the door. I'm like, okay, like I'm ready to go, right? I look around and I see a bunch of like teenage kids just walking, having fun, doing TikToks, whatever they're doing, like shooting videos down aisles. I see other people just walking like they didn't hear anything. Like, do these people not realize what a gun sounds like when it goes off? Right? So I'm sitting here, I go check out. I'm looking out the doors. Like I'm literally with my oldest daughter. I'm just like looking around, get to the car, go home, right? I get home and the next day I look into it. There was a shooting just behind the Target in a neighborhood, right? I was aware these people weren't. So I was prepared in case, I need to get like throw down, right? I was ready. I didn't have a gun on me, but I had a knife in my pocket. I was ready to start, chopping. But the thing is I was aware, so I was prepared. So I can understand that aspect of, the awareness part, but like outside of being aware and like avoiding it or just, being abreast to what's happening, I don't really know if there's much benefit personally. My thoughts.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a little different because what's the vicinity in the online world?
Click away. I mean, it's pretty close. I mean, the world kind of collapses on just like a few milliseconds, right?
Yeah.
So there it's important, right? Just like physically, being aware of what's your surroundings is important, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at it from the wrong lens. Again, like I said,
I think there's a balance here, right, Fern? I think there is a need for the right, critical infrastructure companies to report these things when they happen, so that we can prevent, any loss of human life or anything like that. But also, there has to be a line that's like, not these companies because they're not necessarily critical infrastructure. I don't know where that line is defined. I have to look that up exactly.
Well, the other thing we need to define is what's considered a significant incident.
Oh, like what they cover, or what counts as measurable? I think is the term that most lawyers use.
Ask 100 attorneys, you'll get 1,500 answers. That's what
meaningful. Let me see here. So,
well, I mean, so I know that if you look at violations for HIPAA and the HHS, for example, they break it down by number of patient records that are lost. Okay. But a lot of times you don't even know within 72 hours how many records have been affected. That's a tough one.
Yeah, and then if you report incorrectly and they find out after you look at a final report, like what happens then?
Well, that's what I'm worried about, right? So if you think about it, you're a CISO, head of security for one of these organizations, and you go to report it, but you only know what you know in 72 hours. What if you're wrong? And what are the repercussions if you are wrong?
Oh, so here's an interesting aspect of it. So yes, you have to report what you are aware of and what is known at the time of the incident, but what you have to preserve and retain what they're calling minimal telemetry. So you can actually support what you provided at a later date. So it's kind of like, hey, we just got robbed, but we don't know how much they stole, right? If someone broke into your house, right? Hey, we had an incident, but we don't know the extent of the damage. But then you have to actually provide that.
Okay, so I like that analogy. Like your house just got broken into, and you call the police. In this case, what are most incidents, cybersecurity incidents, caused by? Somebody leaving the door open, right? So yeah, or a user and somebody who's inside let somebody in by accident. So you don't necessarily know if you've been robbed yet.
You just know you have indicators, right?
Think that, yeah, maybe you had an intruder, but you're not sure. And so a lot of times that's how it starts off. So at what point does that 72-hour clock start ticking?
I don't know. Like when you see damage? I don't know. I think it's probably something they got to consider, right? They obviously have this 3-day window, or 1 day if you're in the EU, but they are saying the initial report must have a minimum viable content, right? So according to the framework, it has to be credible, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to provide reasonably what you're aware of, and then supplement it later. So it seems like there's somewhat of a tolerance, if you will, on what you provide versus what is actually accurate. But I think when you have something like that, what ends up happening is just like, oh, hey, we're having an issue. We don't know. And then it's just like fire it off. And then 4 days later, you actually provide the work. So maybe the issue of like resources and constraint is less of an issue if you just like hit have some sort of framework internally. Like I know Troy mentioned in the past, whenever there's an incident, you always have the incident response plan printed, right? You have a physical copy of it. So maybe people just like set up where they just notify these different bodies and say, hey, click goes, and then we'll figure it out later, right? Maybe that's a workaround, but yeah, they're defining it as minimum viable content. So something not 100% accurate, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, because we know incidents change all the time, right? The facts are not going to be the same as in your report. So you need IP addresses, dates and times, and just a basic description of what the event was that caused it. But again, going back to significant incident, most incident response plans have some kind of threshold that makes it significant to them when they start reporting up to leadership or something like that. There may be a better definition from this paperwork that we haven't seen yet, but I think that there should be somebody in charge of that communication and have some pre-canned forms. There's even software out there that I know that enters into like the breach response that can shoot off stuff automatically to all the stakeholders and keep everybody informed. Pretty cool software. But yeah, so I think it should be.
Well, with that, Troy, comes somebody who's going to leak it.
Yeah.
But that's always the case, right? And you're sending it out, mass communication. Hey, this energy company is having an issue, and you broadcast that across all critical infrastructure. Well, somebody in there is going to leak it.
Yeah, I was referring to like there's an automation, so it goes to your privacy council, it goes to your CIO, your CEO. Depending on who you add to your group, internal, not external.
Oh, internal,
facing.
Not external. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can automate it to go to law enforcement if you want. You can add that in as an option.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
No, never. Troy's over there like
I want to make sure. I want to know
No,
what's going
actually,
out.
I
Legal
tell
counsel probably wants to know what's going out.
Yeah. Before we could ever release to law enforcement, we always had to have legal counsel sign off on it, our general counsel, because you don't want to open the door if you don't have to. And I don't know how you go around that legally, but once you open that door and they have a vision in, they can say, "Oh, well, you weren't prepared. You didn't have this checkbox. You didn't have this done." And now you're looking at
that's
looking into the face of.
That's what I'm worried about, right? It's not like, so if I get pulled over and the cops say, "Hey, can we take a look in your car?" Well,
no.
Yeah, like I got nothing to hide, but I'm not consenting to a search. So it's not like I'm trying to hide anything, but I'm also not trying to let people rummage through our business if they don't have to, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like when they read you or before they read you like your rights, right? A lot of times they'll say, "Hey, like, do you mind if we do this? Do you do this? Can we do this?" And it's like, don't say anything, right? I need a lawyer, right? Give me a lawyer. What's your name, sir? Give me a lawyer, right? Because what do they say? Part of the Miranda is anything you say can and will be used against you. Like it's not to your benefit to speak, right? So in this way, it's a lot very similar where it's not necessarily in an organization's benefit to just like spill the beans of what they have. It's kind of like, I don't know the right term, but like least privileged access to this information is probably the best way to keep it, because even though it's technically the government, it kind of reminds me of like HR teams. Like they're not really there for you. They're kind of there for the company, right? Like making sure nothing bad happens. Or so I've heard.
And then it goes to, well, if they take the information, how do you know that they're protecting it, right? So when we do third-party risk, we always ask the vendors, what do you do with our data? What do you do with it after you don't need it anymore? Do you destroy it? Or is it encrypted while you have it? So I think there's a lot of questions there with, CISA. What are they doing with it? How are they handling our data once we submit it to them? I think there's a lot of questions there that probably needs to be answered.
But maybe the one thing that they can do is at least operationalize it, right? Internally, if it ends up getting approved, is people just have some sort of like framework where there's like a list, like a bundle.
Well, I think about it this way too. I mean, in any SOC, we're always worried about getting too many alerts. How many false positives are there? We can't keep up with them. What happens in this case, right? Are they even structured in a way where they have team members always looking at these? And what if they get too many alerts and they can't investigate them?
I think it's just copy. I mean, this might be very like anecdotal, but just copy paste. Just set aside a partition on your SAN and just like dump everything and say, well, that's for that. We'll get to it later. Like,
well, that's what I mean, right? So they're saying you need to give us that information in 72 hours. But by the way, we'll review it over the next 2 years.
Well, we'll give you a final printout of your report, but just make sure you get it to us.
I think the challenge here that CISA is really trying to overcome is exactly what we're talking about here. Everybody's so worried about letting stuff out to the government that it won't be taken care of, and so we end up fighting fires one by one, 1,000 times a day. That these bad guys are just taking us to lunch. They're eating our lunch because we're running in silos. We're not sharing anything with anybody. We're like protecting our own little fiefdom. And if we could just learn how to collaborate better, like we always talk about, the hackers share information freely, and they're making money every single day. And we're all sitting here in our little offices going, I can't tell anybody about this because it's my kingdom, and I don't want people to peer in here. There's a balance between those two things, and I can promise you that I don't think the government's coming in to try to put you on the spot for not doing something you should have, or you didn't have the right protections in place. But at the same time, I think it is on CISA to do these town halls and get people comfortable with the fact of information sharing, to build those walls down. So it's a tough road they have.
Yeah. Well, I think when you think of it from that context, like just maybe doing it is good. It's good for context. It's good for like awareness. So I'm sure you know this, right? Because you know a lot about the banking world, right? So in the banking world, they have to report to the SEC, FBI, and Treasury. So now let's just add the CISA on there, right? Yeah. If we're already doing 3, what's the 4th one gonna like? What's the issue with the 4th one? So I don't know. I think to me, it just feels like, you guys remember Office Space? When they're like, hey, do you guys
TPS
the TPS report? Hey, where's this?
You forgot the cover letter on the cover page. Don't you know that you're supposed to put a cover page on your TPS report?
Yeah. And then like this almost feels like the Bobs, like showing up and like, hey, what are you guys doing? And they're like, what do you do here? Right? It's like, oh, I collect flare or whatever they say in the movie.
I mean, that's the problem here, right? I'm not saying that it's bad to collaborate and share information. I think when it's mandated from the government, people kind of get their, their wall up, because we already have industry verticals or industry organizations. All right, let's take the ISACs, for example. There's one, the ISAC. So there's Health ISAC, there's FISAC for the financial, right? There's IT ISAC. There's, so we already have these industry verticals where we can do knowledge sharing, right, in between. And we already have confidentiality agreements, threat sharing, stuff like that. It's when it's mandated on you, and those are all optional. So your organization doesn't have to, if you're in healthcare, you don't have to be part of the Health ISAC, right? You sign up and you pay a membership fee and you become part of that group, and now you're amongst people that think in the same way and want to share information. I think when it comes to the government telling you have to do it, that's when people are like, whoa, wait a second here.
No one likes to be controlled, right? Or told what to do. Like, we're adults here, right? But when you were saying like these different bodies that people can be a part of, I was thinking, what about InfraGard? Isn't that like their whole thing, right? I mean,
that's like a public-private collaboration with the FBI.
So public-private, not just critical infrastructure only, but critical infrastructure falls within that domain, doesn't it?
Like you have to be one of the 16. I think you have to be one of the 16 domains to be a part of FBI InfraGard. They focus on those 16.
Yeah. So why can't they just like have InfraGard like manage it? Like InfraGard's already collecting the information
because they're also segmented, but
they're voluntary too. Yeah,
and they're voluntary as well. So I mean, that's another example, right? So you may do that. That might be another group that participate in and share information with.
The 5th group.
The problem is that voluntary is exactly that, right? Some groups are going to be really great, like ISAC is the best ISAC in my opinion, but then some are going to be terrible at information sharing, so you're going to miss a lot of stuff. I'm not saying that we should go to regulation, not at all, but I do think that we do need to have a better standard. Maybe there is a better standard that we have for information sharing across all segments that is somehow matched up for quality and consistency.
Yeah, make it consistent. I agree with that. I just don't know how I feel about all these reports, right? But I think,
and like you mentioned earlier, if you're reporting to the FBI and the SEC and to CISA, I think it's all one place. I'm hoping that I know FBI and CISA are the same place. That's IC3. SEC might be a little bit different because they have their own rules and regulations and such from the Treasury side. But we got to simplify the reporting requirements.
Yeah, either simplify the reporting requirements or just make it easier for people to just package it up and just like send something. Maybe so here's my thought is when you force people to do something, you get the bare minimum effort, right? If it's not voluntary, like they don't actually
the minimum number of flare. How many of flare do you have?
You're a minimum flare kind of guy, huh? It's like, so here's a requirement. It's like, all right, cool. Like I got flare. And maybe you just start reporting like the least amount of information. Like how valuable is it? I don't know. Maybe it's useful, but like you don't actually care. You're just kind of doing it because you're being told. It's like, I have kids. Go clean your room. All the clothes that are in their room are now stuffed in a pile in their closet. They're not washed. They're not put away. Nothing's been vacuumed. It just looks good, but like they didn't actually clean their room. And it annoys me so much. Sometimes the kids listen. So this is for you guys. This is for you girls. Clean your room.
How many times have we talked about your kids' closets on this show? I love that.
A lot, because it really annoys me. But it's the same kind of thing. It's like if someone's telling you to do something and you don't actively want to do it, like what's the probability that you're going to do 100% effort as if it was something that you wanted to do? Like a lot of times people want to go snowboarding or skiing, right? They'll put all their time and effort saving money to go out and do this. But you tell them to go to the gym and they're like, oh no, I'm not going to go to the gym, right? Maybe that's me. But it's like minimum effort when it's being asked of you, maximum effort when you want to do it on your own. I don't think I'm wrong there, but maybe there's room for nuance. Yeah. I don't know.
Has anybody here ever done an IC3 report, by the way? Damian, have you done that?
Yeah, I have. I've submitted on the through the online
it's
form.
Absolutely cumbersome and takes forever. They have to simplify that process, because if that is the process, nobody's going to sit through that. After page 2 of 10, you're like, I'm done. This is too much.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people, and I won't say who, will just text somebody they know in the FBI and say, hey, this is going on. You know, is there something you guys know that's going on, or should I report this? And the response back is like, oh yeah. No worries. We kind of know that's already happening. Or the odd case, it'd be like, here, fill out the form and get that ticket submitted.
Give us a little juice.
And then you try to milk them on, hey, what do you know? And they're like, just submit the ticket.
Submit the TPS report real quick. Or, I am a silver lining kind of guy. There's a business opportunity here for a company to come out with an AI tool that just does this for everyone. Like,
I don't know. That's probably worse.
Yeah, probably.
The AI will just turn it against you and use it and extort you.
Yeah.
Claude bot.
Yeah. Or OpenClaw, right? So OpenClaw now has this new feature, new module. It's like, are you reporting to CISA? Yeah. Like, click here. $50,000. Okay. So we talked about the minimum telemetry, and we talked about the fact that, like, if something's a burden, right, people probably aren't necessarily going to do it. The next part is...
Well, no, they're going to do it.
Well, yeah, they're going to do it, but like to what extent? And
because if you don't, you're going to get fined.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if there's like even jail time potentially.
But does it become minimum effort or like maximum value for the governing body that's requesting it? So it's like kids in the room, in the closet, right? It's just like...
All right. It's just like you're probably going to have to not only write it up, but give it to your general counsel, right?
Well, you're for sure giving them a lot more than you're giving the government, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Up for speculation. No. I think legal counsel should know everything, because they're the ones that are kind of there to protect the business, right? So,
I mean, there's cases in the past where the CISO has gone to legal counsel and the CISO has still been charged.
Troy knows those people.
Joe Sullivan.
I was going to say, but yeah.
Sorry. We love you, Joe. Thank God that went the way it did.
But yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's tough to say, but the one part that everyone knows that is part of an incident is the ransom, right? Maybe it's 4 a.m. Maybe it's not 3 a.m. The 24-hour rule. So if you pay, you have 1 day to tell CISA. Quick question, like, why does that matter? Like maybe Troy would know, like.
Well, okay. If you pay, you have 24 hours to tell them.
Yeah.
But
what does
you
it do?
You would have already known. So CISA would already have to know, because you have to report that you had an incident.
Well, so they know you have an incident, but like, are they like keeping score of like who paid, who didn't? Like we've talked about before is, just the general rule of thumb is just don't pay, right? You shouldn't have to pay if you have everything, all your ducks are in order, ideally, right? If you have this defense in layers, right? As we always talk about, and something happens, you should have enough things, we'll say protection wise, to get you through it without having to pay. So if you end up paying, something broke down at some point along the way. So whether someone pays or not, like, what does it matter? Like, I feel like, right? So just based off of that statement that I just made, what I feel like is if people do pay, what they're doing is they're opening the door to let other bodies know that they weren't able to fully recover without paying. And then that becomes an issue with insurance companies, because now if insurance companies know that you paid, they're also aware that you couldn't fully recover on your own, right? And what happens to your premiums at that point? So it's like paying this bill or paying this ransom isn't in your best interest, but if you have to, like, maybe just get it done, right? I don't know the process for paying. So you just pay, like, hey, we got to get our stuff back, like get back online. But now all of a sudden, now you report this to CISA and they're like, hey, look what these guys had to pay. And the insurance company is like, oh, no, that's premiums just went up, buddy. Like, is that, obviously I just made that up. Is that pure speculation, or is that reasonable?
No, I think there's a lot of organizations that probably can't recover on their own. That's the reality of it, right? They're just not, they don't have the right tools, or they're not designed in a way to recover from an incident like that.
But who benefits the most by knowing that? Assuming like you're in custody for a crime, whether you committed it or not, the minute you speak, that's being used against you, right? So as you speak, that benefit becomes more so a liability, or speaking is to the benefit of the governing body, like the police office, right? So now if you say in business, by speaking about it, now there are parties that are aware of it that have an incentive to know.
Well, what Troy is saying is that you're reporting it to CISA, so it's confidential within the government.
But is it?
Yeah, that was my question, right?
Well, we have to take some leaps of faith there. I think they should protect our data as much as possible. But, and to your other question, Fern, with insurance companies, if you do pay a ransom, of course you have to divulge that in your insurance rider every year, and they have questionnaires and stuff. They'll know in between insurance companies. They share that data.
That's usually a question freely. Too. That's usually a question. Yeah, so have you had any incidents? It's
like getting a traffic collision. Your insurance is going to go up. They're going to share the information about that from the DMV. It's going to go on your license, etc. So, yes, your insurance may go up. The answer is to pay or not to pay. I was hoping regulations would actually go a little farther here. Well, now that sounds crazy. Don't hold it against me. I wish we had a law like Australia does, where you cannot pay a ransom. If we stopped paying ransoms, period, the stuff would stop, I think. And so we're not even close to going to that level. But I would love to see us get a lot more strict on paying the ransom. So 24 hours after you pay that, I think is reasonable, because you've already divulged something about an incident within that 72-hour window. Now you've paid. So I think it's very reasonable to let them know that.
For the most part, I agree with that, right? We probably should stop the payments. But I wonder about, let's put a healthcare organization, for example, where there's patient lives at risk, and there's just no way this hospital can recover from it, right? Mm-hmm. It's and their only option is to pay to hopefully get back the systems online. I that's a tough one, because I don't want to say don't pay, and then you've got, let's say, 100 lives that are dependent on these systems. It's, even if you outlaw it, I don't think that organization will have enough money to go and right size their systems to make sure that it's not being hit by ransomware, or they can restore properly from a ransomware incident.
Yeah, agreed.
So I don't know what the right answer, but I'm with you. I'm like, I would lean more towards don't pay, but I know that there's times where you just don't have a choice. So I can't really fault those organizations for making that decision. So we live, one of the things about the United States is, hey, this is a free country. You can let people, the businesses, make those decisions what's right for their organization. So maybe that is the way we're kind of approaching it in the United States, and not like Australia. But I'm on that side a little bit more of, hey, I can't really fault a business for making a business decision. The problem on the greater good, though, what you're saying, Troy, is if the attackers know they're never going to get paid, they wouldn't do it.
Exactly. They would stop. But here's another thing, and this goes out to all the companies listening here. If you invest in backup solutions and some basic cybersecurity hygiene, you could prevent 90% of these things from being successful, or to take you to the point that you would have to pay a ransom and not be able to recover from backup. So, just a little pre-planning and spending goes a long way to, instead of being rolled over a barrel, having to pay millions of dollars in a time of crisis.
Yeah. Speaking of backup companies, perfect timing for our very first sponsor. Just kidding. No one's paying us for this. That would have been a good one. Like if we had like a company paying us for backup and recovery services.
Yeah.
Boom, right there. So if you're listening and you haven't worked at these companies, what is the email? Is it
DTF?
DTF@cyberpodcast.net?
Yeah.
Your ad could have been right here. Perfect timing. It could have been right here. But you didn't know. Now you know. Give us a ring. Okay. I think, let me see here where we're at on time. Probably a little bit longer. The deadline, May 2026. I didn't realize it was so close. We're almost at the end of February.
So do you think they're doing these town halls for awareness or maybe getting feedback? Mm-hmm. I think everything we talked about here is probably going to be discussed at the town halls and maybe more. I don't know if I'll be able to go to it or be invited to a town hall. I'm not part of any critical infrastructure, I don't think. Troy, do you think you'd be able to make one of those? It'd be interesting to.
Yeah, I'm going to actually look at the schedule and see if I can crash one and listen in because I'd love to see that.
Is it only open to critical infrastructure or is it open to the public?
I don't know. I'll have to do some research on that. I am still part of the FBI InfraGard here in Las Vegas, so I'm sure that if they have one locally or on the West Coast, I could find a way in. But I would love to hear, from CISA what they're up to.
Yeah. So this, my notes are basically saying that the whole point of the town halls is to deconflict like whatever ruling that they end up coming out with.
Yeah, because I think there's still a lot of questions. May is very quick.
Yeah, it's like just a few months away. So there's not much time. So it's kind of like you either get with the program or you don't, or you just, whatever happens, and you just got to deal with it afterwards. Right. Yeah, I'll check the schedule and see. Obviously I'm not part of any of that, but I'm sure there's a lot of people here in Arizona that would be part of that. Like, especially with like the InfraGard team, like Frank and his whole group of people that he knows from the InfraGard. I'm sure they're going to be in some of those meetings. So maybe we just ping Frank and say, hey, like, what's the latest, right?
Yeah, or you get somebody on here to talk about it in more detail once they get through the town halls.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a different topic and episode that we've dealt with. We haven't really covered compliance requirements to this level. A lot of people who obviously tune into our podcast, they're starting their careers and a lot of them want to be pen testers and or they want to be in the SOC, but they don't think about what the implications are in terms of requirements for government reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's part of the job, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the, well, how many pillars are there of cybersecurity? 16, right? Okay.
Oh, so 12 pillars of cyber, yeah.
Oh, you're 16 on the critical infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Damn, that's a lot. It's a lot of different areas, but GRC is a very important one. It just doesn't get as much love as the offensive side.
Well, I mean, look, here's the problem, right? We already are under a lot of pressure and stress, and especially when you're trying to figure out an incident.
TPS report.
Yeah. Do you really want to figure out what can I write down? And again, not give away too much information, but at least do the minimum that doesn't get me in trouble.
Yeah. Right. Just the bare minimum. Right.
Yeah.
I do that a lot in my life. My wife's like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, okay. And I do just enough not to get in trouble, but enough to where it's not like a burden. Right. So that's why,
But it's not, here's the thing though, it's not that one-time report because it's initial report. And then as you learn more, you probably have to give more information and then more and then more. And so until you have a final report, that's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah. It's like when the honey-do list is one thing and you start doing that. And oh, by the way, just add on more work, just more. Done. I got to go. I'm on vacation. Right. I guess I can see how it's important. I think it's important for, so when I talked with Frank, probably like a year ago, he was telling me how InfraGard is kind of like, not necessarily guerrilla warfare, but it's an evolution of warfare, right? And at some point it becomes a network of networks versus a network of networks, instead of how it is,
Yeah, but so most people outside of Arizona won't know Frank. So Frank Grimmelman He's a legend here in Arizona.
So when I talked with him, he was telling me how the whole idea with ACTRA, right, was a network of networks where public and private can come together. And InfraGard is, kind of part of that. But with ACTRA, it's kind of like the sharing of information, anonymized information, right? So I can see the value in that. But then again, I know of a situation where someone was dealing with something and they reported it to the ACTRA team, the ACTRA group. And then those people collectively came together and they had a meeting with a bunch of different people, a bunch of different organizations sharing that information. And it has something to do with like a remote desktop hack that organizations were affected by because they all use the same software, right? I'm not going to name the software, but they were all using the same software. So everyone was made aware of it. They kind of did the things to make sure that they weren't in the same situation, or not in the situation, but vulnerable. We'll say they weren't vulnerable. I see the value in that.
Yeah, but see, that information is also shared across the ISACs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they are talking about different tools or potential vulnerabilities. I'm sure, Troy, you have this too. I have a group of CISOs that talk about things that, they won't discuss publicly, and we won't name names. But if they see something, they mention it to the group and ask, is this something that you guys are seeing as well? And so there are these informal networks as well that's already collaborating.
Yeah.
100%.
That's going to happen, right? But what does the paperwork actually get me is what I'm thinking.
It gets you to stay out of jail and stop paying fines.
Yeah, exactly. As Chatham House rules, we go to so many meetings, Damian, with CISOs, and we talk about the realities of what's hitting us. And that's a great way for information sharing. And so much stuff bubbles up in there that helps me in my career. So imagine if we could do that at scale. And I think that's what CISA is trying to do. And I know how difficult it is to break down some of these walls of trust and just understanding. Really, it's really about understanding the true impact of this information. So hopefully they can do that.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I know some of the things that I say makes it sound like I was like, this dude's not even a CISO. What is he doing? What is he doing here?
I know not to ask you to search your car. That's what I learned on this podcast.
Exactly. But it's just more so like general thoughts, like average Fern thoughts, right? Maybe if anything is just a different perspective, and the opinion of that perspective is like, oh yeah, like this guy's actually right. 90% of it, or what is it? What is the Panther thing? Is like it's works 60% of the time every time. You know what I'm talking about from Anchorman?
Yeah,
exactly. Yes, 60% of the time it works every time.
That's me. 60% of the time I'm right every time. And maybe it's just because I'm not in the same shoes as you guys, but outsider perspective is probably maybe what I'll just chalk it up to. And to me, when I take that of what is kind of being put together, and I kind of like mirror that or draw parallels to like my own personal life, it's like, dude, like this is...
Well, that's why this discussion is interesting, because I knew obviously Troy with his experience and being on the side of, hey, the government's trying to do right by everybody. And I get that. And then you got me, who's a little more skeptical, like, hey, I see it, but I don't want to like just open up everything for the government.
And I'm like the Kool-Aid man, just bursting through the wall.
So we're not all on the same page. We have different ideas on this. And I think that's common when they get to these town halls. You'll probably have people they get it. They want this to happen. And then on the other end of it, you're going to have people questioning, well, how much more work is this for me?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's valuable, but at what cost, right? Can I justify the expense? Do I see the ROI in the time and resources of my already constrained team being sent to do this, right? Or is there a way to operationalize it? But how much time is that going to take away from things that actually, we deal with on a daily basis? Or we could just say things that matter, right? To us as a business, for our business, right? Making money. I don't know. I think, Troy, you definitely have to get into one of these meetings and let us know what happens, because I think maybe we have another follow-up episode towards the middle of the year.
We should. I think we should, after we go to these and we hear from our peers as well, maybe have a follow-up on this one.
And have a guest come on.
Yeah. Maybe that guy, Brett, I think was his name.
Brent.
Brent.
Yeah, Brent Watkins.
So I guess we're going to close out the episode on this. This idea just came to me. Top predictions for what actually gets written versus speculation. So we're going to speculate today.
I don't know. I think it's already written.
Oh, okay. But I mean, it's not like 100%, right? Like there's room for, I mean, why are they going on talking about it if they're not going to, it's not like written in stone. It's just like written on paper.
Yeah, but I don't see them saying, oh yeah, sorry. Our mistake. We're not going to do that again.
So no, neither one of you guys want to speculate on a line in the sand?
I think that CISA is probably going out to try to get people on board with the new directive, whatever it may be written. I don't think it's going to change, like Damian said. So my expectation is that they're going to try to get people to adhere to it. And I think as we go through the year, we're going to hear a lot of cases where somebody didn't follow the rules and there was some action. And once that precedence is set, then you're going to have privacy councils and legal councils looking at that going, oh crap, we have to do this. So hopefully, don't be the first. Don't be the first one to be on the bad side of CISA on this regulation. So that'd be my only advice.
Yeah. So then the question is, who takes the penalty? Is it the business? Mm-hmm. Is it, other executives, or is it the CISO, or is it levels below the CISO? Like, does it go down to analysts, right? So
yeah, no, I don't think they could ever do that. I pray that they don't hold the CISO accountable directly. It should go against whatever company. Yeah. But that would be a great question to ask, because if you ask Tim Brown, who just got out of his Wells notice, that would be a great topic of understanding. Especially if you imagine being a CISO and it does point to you directly, who would take that risk? They would be looking for a role outside of critical infrastructure, which would leave us with a vacuum of leadership.
Or you instruct your IR team to don't tell you until they're sure.
Yeah.
Then something comes from that too, right? Like, oh, now you can't do that. It's like an amendment to it. Yeah. Do you think one of these days we can get Tim Brown on? That'd be pretty cool.
Last week, I'm sure he would come on. He's, I think he would be amenable.
All right. He was just at CruiseCon, right? So
he was, yeah.
That's where you were at. So let's get Tim Brown on. I'm going to put that out there. The year 2026 is the year Tim Brown comes on the DCF Cyber Podcast.
Tim, you'll get your invitation soon if next time I talk to you.
Whether he's in person or remote. Mm-hmm. You guys speak into existence, boys. Okay, well, I think we pretty much covered everything. Got all the way through roughly an hour, so perfect timing.
Bare minimum.
Yeah. bare minimum.
Just the right amount of flair for today.
1 hour and we're good. But these town halls are in March. So March 9th is the kickoff for the energy and water sector. So if you are in energy like SRP, APS, Tucson Electric, NV Energy, those are the ones I can think of that are around our area. So jump in, be a part of the conversation, send us a message, let us know what you hear. Troy, he's on the hook for joining one of these and reporting back and giving us the info. And then middle of the year, May, June, we'll probably have another episode to talk about it. Anything that we didn't cover that you guys wanted to add?
No, great topic.
Great topic.
All right. That's it. We'll see you next week. Take care.